Greetings YouTube and welcome to my quick rundown of the Navigator class guide. This is a video dedicated to mostly describing just what the Navigator is, because some people are a little bit confused with the Navigator, not because she is complicated in any way, but her unique mechanic is kind of described with a thematic flair in the game. And it's not a bad thing. I just want to kind of put this video out there to, give some insight into her kit. But anyways, the Navigator is built around a unique class mechanic called Volatile. And its different applications of its effects are depending if she herself is volatile or not. And this affects all of her skills, and I believe it's quite important to just kind of have a basic understanding of what's going on when you use this class. So, let me dive right into it. So, to start things off, I would like to quickly point out that a very basic rundown of her class mechanic is described in the guild description back at the Hamlet. And as it says here, Volatile, you start combat Volatile, the skill Disrupt transfers Volatile. After a Volatile monster dies, regain Volatile, heal 33% max HP. And it should be important to note that she herself does not have to be the one to kill a Volatile monster. You can have anyone do it, if that monster dies, she gets Volatile back, and it is also very important to know that only one entity in a battle can be affected by Volatile at any given time. So, if she is volatile, none of the enemy will be volatile. If the enemy is volatile, she herself will not be volatile. Now, every combat encounter she begins, she is volatile, as I just said. This is her default condition and is indicated by a glow of her sword. Now, the skill Disrupt is what transfers this volatile state from herself to a random enemy, which is indicated by a purple orb over their sprite. To transfer the volatile energy is also a free action, so there's no reason not to do it sometimes. Now, when an enemy is marked by the volatile orb, means she is no longer volatile and she has lost the glow of the blade. If that monster were to ever die while volatile, she regains the volatile condition and heals 33% of her max HP. And like I said, I have to stress this, only one entity can be marked at any time. Herself or an enemy, not both. She is simple on the surface, and I feel most are only confused by her gimmick, by the thematic flair of the entire class mechanic, because it is not as cut and dry as something like Mark or Stun. Now, while she is volatile, skills will list effects such as while volatile and if volatile to indicate that they apply an additional effect while she is in possession of the energy or while her sword is glowing. Or likewise, this is her natural default state. While she is not volatile and you use the skill Disrupt, that means an enemy on the field is marked by the orb, and then skills that are relevant to this state will list if not volatile and versus volatile. If not volatile will apply the other associated effect, and skills marked with versus volatile will just do additional damage against enemies marked by the orb. Now, going over each of her skills real quick. She has two melee abilities which interact with this mechanic. One is Behead. This has plus 14 dodge versus volatile and 9 crit versus volatile. That's it. Pure, plain and simple. It has a slight bonus against volatile enemies. Next is Whirlwind. This deals 36% more damage while she is volatile. You understand so far? So basically, use this when her sword is glowing purple, or you use this when the enemy is marked by the orb, and use this when her sword is glowing purple. Of her next set of abilities, I'm going to cover the next 3 abilities because these are a little bit more important than just her swinging a big sword around. First will be Disrupt. This is her most important skill in her entire kit to interact with the Volatile and versus Volatile mechanic. On the first use, this is a free action and it targets a random enemy on the other side of the field, and it takes the glow from her sword and throws it to the enemy and marks them with basically a purple orb. It is basically her selfish mark that you can use at any time. On top of this shuffling an enemy and debuffing them for damage received, you can do this again and it becomes... Basically, when you use this, it becomes a normal damage received debuff with a shuffle. So you can use this twice in one turn if she is volatile, or a nice juicy, like, double damage receive debuff on the enemy. That's her most important skill. Familiarize yourself with Disrupt, and once you start to understand how this affects things, it all kind of goes downhill from here. Now, it's also important to know that random targets cannot hit corpses. So the less enemies that there are, the better Disrupt gets. Now, Broadside has two effects depending if she is volatile or if she is not volatile. It is only usable once per battle, but whenever an enemy dies and she regains volatile, you regain that use back. Now, if you use this while she is volatile, she marks herself and buffs herself 95% damage reflection. That is huge. It is a safe way to just ramp up a lot of damage reflection on yourself. Now, if an enemy is volatile, she does not get a self mark or the damage reflection. Instead, she gives herself 2 blocks and clears any marks on her. Now, regardless if she is volatile or not, it still debuffs her -2 speed and -10% damage melee skills. But like I said, this is only usable per battle until she gets her orb back. Then on volatile, when she regains it back, it refreshes the use. And then finally, Nullify. Now this doesn't transfer volatile or anything like that. That is Disrupt. You take Disrupt, you throw it, it's random. After the enemy is marked by the skill, it becomes a pick any of the 4 enemies and it's just, you know, lock in and keep hitting them with the shuffle and damage received debuff. It's a really good debuff skill. Now Nullify has 2 different effects as well, depending if she is volatile and if the enemy is volatile. Or when she is not volatile, it has no effects if the enemy is volatile or not. Sorry. If she is volatile, this is basically a status nuke skill. If there is something like one of those big size 2 crabs in the cove, or there's enemy that can stun you, bleed you, blight you, this reduces their status skill chance by a significant margin if she is volatile. Now, if she is not volatile, this becomes Intimidate Light. So basically it reduces their damage and their crit abilities from being able to hit your party pretty decently. Nullify it's pretty good. I love its volatile state more than I like its non-volatile state, but an argument can be made for both skills, or both effects of the skill. So essentially, you could think of Broadside and Nullify as 4 skills in the place of 2. Basically, they have 4 effects in 2 things, depending on if she has the orb or not. Now finally, I'm going to cover her last 2 skills, which are kind of more straightforward, like her melee skills, unlike her 3 status skills here. We have Singularity and Shooting Stars. Singularity is a pull 2, and the only thing different with this skill is if she has the energy and her sword is glowing purple and she's volatile, it has an increased move chance against the enemy, which is a pull 2, not too bad and all that. And it's slightly stronger against position 2, and it gets weaker as you get further out. So this is still worth using when you are, say, the enemy is marked and all that stuff. You can still use it against like position 2 and position 3, and it makes a back rank Navigator pretty viable. But Other than that, that's the only effect or difference with this skill if she is volatile. It just has a higher move chance. Singularity, same thing. It works very much like Behead. Well, it works very much like Whirlwind, but it's the inverse effect of that. So Behead has, effects versus the mark. Single Shooting Stars has effects versus the mark. There's 100% damage versus volatile. If there's something that has the mark in the back ranks, you just want to blow them up. Shooting Stars is ceiling spaghetti from occultists, essentially. That's all it is. It's nothing special. Now, when you look at everything at a glance, like I said, she seems complicated because it's a very thematic flair kind of strewn about in the class, but when you break it down, she's really not all that complicated. So Behead is really good against enemies that are marked. Broadside, you use this while she is volatile to have damage reflection. If you don't want the damage reflection, you already use Disrupt. This becomes a very safe, free 2 blocks and clears the mark off herself. Nullify is great for neutering enemies while she's volatile, and especially great for lowering the damage you take when she is not volatile. Singularity is great for back rank. Singularity and Shooting Stars are both great, but Singularity you can use in either state. Great for nuking position 2 and 3, or pulling something from 3 and 4 while she's volatile up to the front ranks. She has a lot of versatility in her skill kit. Now, I'm going to show you guys some gameplay footage of the Volatile mechanic in action. So I'll see you then. Alright, now that we're in combat, I can start to show some of the Navigator's Volatile mechanic. We just started combat, and right now her sword is glowing with this hue around the edge of her sword and in the center here. This means she is volatile right now. So if you would look at Broadside, it will only show the if volatile nature of it on the tooltip. But if you go into here, it'll show if not volatile, it turns into a block and clear. Turns into 2 blocks and marks self. So I hover over this. I click this. This is Disrupt. This is what will change the glow to one of the enemies. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, it's always going to be random. So click here and hits this boy. Now as you can see, the purple orb is over this enemy, and her sword is no longer glowing with the purple hue. That means she is no longer volatile. And we hover over this. This is now showing the if not volatile tooltip. Hover over here, if not volatile, it becomes 2 blocks, clear mark. Exactly what it shows here. So that means if I were to use this, it's going to hit harder or hit better because it's versus volatile. But this loses its potency of 36 damage because she is no longer volatile. So let's go ahead and attack. And as you can see, it was also a free action to use Disrupt. Alright, we got these observant enemies on us. Alrighty, don't mind this class. This is a very work in progress Toho class from Merg. As you can see, now that the enemy died, it transferred the volatile back to her and healed her for 33% max of her HP. Pure, plain and simple, and now she's volatile again. It's easy as that. It doesn't matter how the enemy dies, how you kill them, who kills them, as long as they die before the end of the turn. Ooh, I forgot to put skills on Reynold. Ah! Who cares? We'll pass the turn. This serves as a demonstration purpose. Go ahead, put a block on Reynold here. Alright, would like to showcase another use of Volatile. Alright. All I need is one more turn. Come on, Tamara, get your turn back. Come on. Come on. The brawler's gonna go. That's fine. Yep, pass your turn. Don't matter. So now, I'm going to show you the difference of Whirlwind. Right now, she's volatile. We have 8 to 14 and 7 to 13. But if I were to transfer this off of her, like so, now it's going to read 6 to 11, 7 to 12. Slightly weaker. Now, I think that should give a decent enough grasp of how the mechanic works. But let's go ahead and finish this fight. So now she killed him and got the heal back. Now it's important to know that as she uses the volatile heal, it gradually gets weaker throughout the battle. As you can see, minus 100% healing received when regaining volatile for the rest of the battle. So you're good for maybe like 2 heals. And it's also important to know that disrupt is not always a random target. You can use it, debuff the enemy, plus 18% damage received, and you can still use it on either the same enemy, like this, or another. So just because an enemy is volatile doesn't mean disrupt is bad. Disrupt is a very good skill. It gets weaker as there's less enemies, but it's still a damage received debuff. So we can go pop this sucker for an intense he resisted. We can go ahead and do something like this, buff up Hammer a little bit more. Go ahead and put a block on Reynolds so he doesn't take unnecessary damage. Idiot helmet me, forgot to give him skills. That's fine, this is a demonstration. A demo of Volatile. There we go. Alrighty. Yep, just pass turn. You're good, Reynolds. This is our test save. Go ahead and clear that off. My favorite helmet. Alright. Now we do... Yeah, that dodge... I mean, he has 0 dodge, but if he were to have dodge, 14 of that dodge would be ignored. And 7 crit versus Volatile. So we have a 16% chance to crit here, or a 29% chance to crit here. Only 14. So we hit him, didn't kill him. Go ahead and finish him off with this, and get Volatile back. We don't get the heal. Whenever you use Volatile, you take 33% of your max HP off and throw it to the enemy, basically. And if you do it like I said, more than twice, you kind of lose that health. You don't get the healing back. As you can see, it's stacked up to 150%. Let me finish this buddy off. Buddy? Boyo. Whatever. Anyways, that is a general rundown of the Navigator's Volatile mechanic. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them down in the comments down below, and I will try to answer any confusions as best as I can, or anything like that. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, share it with some other people that are confused with Navigator's mechanic. Hopefully this little short guide will help them out. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and all that YouTube jazz, and I'll try to make more videos like this of certain classes that have little gimmicks like this in the future. But anyways, go download Navigator. Her class link will be in the description down below. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.